Tonight, doctors and politicians at odds over Omicron amid a surge at Melbourne test sites in the lead up to Christmas. Plus, another death from the Jumping Castle tragedy in Tasmania. The hunt for a thug who used a syringe to hold up a Carnegie donut store. 2 children among 4 killed in a light plane crash at Moreton Bay. Victorians to splurge $5 billion this week. The latest live from Chadstone. And Melbourne lashed by ferocious winds, forcing cricketers to duck for cover.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Blake Johnson starts now.
Good evening. There is a deepening divide between doctors and politicians tonight as the threat of the Omicron variant intensifies. Victorians are being reassured there'll be no change to restrictions in the lead up to Christmas, but health experts warn Sydney is sleepwalking into a catastrophic disaster.
There were queues for the Christmas windows in the Bourke Street Mall, but they were longer and more sombre queues for COVID testing today. Massive demand from people with symptoms and without who need a negative result to travel interstate.
I ask people to be patient. We're expanding it, extending it as much as we can.
The government is also asking people to be vigilant with masks as the Omicron variant is set to overwhelm Delta. Doctors agree, mask up.
Anything can be done to slow down time at the moment is helpful, and really something as simple as that just makes sense to continue to do at the moment.
The transmission rate alone is concerning. Think about wearing a mask. It's a simple, easy thing to do.
As the 730 at-risk patrons of the Peel and Circuit bars end their 7 days home quarantine, the state government says it may happen again at other venues.
It makes sense, a nightclub, a pub, if there are a number of cases, if there is an exposure, if it is Omicron, there may be a case-by-case evaluation and arrangements for quarantine.
Quarantine for a week at home, even if negative, but the government can't give a clear description of what constitutes a high-risk setting, except to say it's judged case by case.
Lack of clarity in what a high-risk setting is and what isn't needs to be defined, and that clarity needs to be provided to Victorians.
There are 1,240 new COVID cases in Victoria from just over 76,000 tests. That's down 12,000 on yesterday's pandemic high. Almost 400 people are in hospital, our worst day in more than a month. And there were 4 more deaths, all in their 70s. Of the vaccines given yesterday in state-run hubs, 87% were boosters.
Well, the numbers are mind-boggling. Essentially, we've done about 1.1 million of the 4 million that will be due for their booster shots by the end of the month.
In New South Wales, more than 2,500 new cases. Its Omicron total now 313. And while there's some fear in the medical world,
Sydney is sleepwalking into a catastrophic disaster in January.
Politically, there's still no talk of lockdowns.
ICU presentations are the key metric for us.
The clear direction is higher vaccination and less restriction.
1 week until the Boxing Day test begins here, and today the acting Premier sought to reassure cricket fans there are no plans to introduce density limits here, so it can still be a full house, just like at the Australian Open, he said, which is now less than a month away. But he is still waiting to find out more details on the spread and risk of Omicron, and he announced 5 more cases of the variant in Victoria today. That brings our total, Blake, to 24.
Paul Dowsley outside the MCG. COVID is creeping into states that have until now been spared the worst of the virus. Queensland's cases have doubled in 48 hours to 42. While Omicron is suspected, authorities insist borders will remain open to holiday makers.
It is likely that most Queenslanders will be potentially exposed to this virus in the coming weeks, and our behaviour needs to reflect that.
South Australia has broken its daily record with 80 new cases, while 3 new infections have prompted Tasmania to make masks compulsory indoors. Governments across the globe are on high alert over the Omicron surge, with London declaring a major incident, putting it on the same footing as a terror attack. The US is now also weighing up new rules, and another European country has just gone back into lockdown.
In the Netherlands, a week out from Christmas, COVID has again claimed the celebration. The Dutch government today announcing a snap lockdown.
Omicron verspreidt zich.
Omicron is spreading even faster than we feared, so we must act now to prevent as much of the worst as possible.
Countries right across Europe are tightening restrictions, and the threat to the UK led to violent protests against new rules in central London. Cases and hospitalisations in London are soaring, 26,000 infections in 24 hours. The Mayor says Omicron is now the dominant variant and has declared a major incident to help ease pressure on the healthcare system.
Previous times when I've declared a major incident have been after terrorist attacks and after the Grenfell Tower. The reason I felt it important to do so is because we've got to work together to get on top of this virus.
Across America, Omicron has reached at least 38 states.
It's clear that Omicron is an extremely contagious variant, that it doubles every 2 to 4 days.
In New York, Saturday Night Live will film with no live audience. Some Broadway shows have shut down again. And the Radio City Rockettes Christmas Spectacular cancelled. This week, New York State recorded its highest case numbers in a single day since the pandemic began, more than 21,000. In the coming days, President Biden will address his country, expected to announce further measures to help control the surge. One stark difference between the US and Australia:
we'd still have 50 million or more people in this country who have not yet even gotten their first vaccination.
The winter warning for them increasingly blunt.
You're looking at a winter of severe illness and death for yourselves, your families, and the hospitals you may soon overwhelm.
In the United States, Smiley Hogan, 7 News.
Another child has died in hospital, becoming the 6th victim of the Jumping Castle tragedy in Tasmania. Local police have accepted help from Interstate as they prepare to interview dozens of traumatised witnesses.
A 6th family shattered after 11-year-old Chase Harrison died in hospital.
Sadly, he died today, only a short time ago, so the family is obviously grieving and traumatised by this.
As relatives of the other victims try to process the tragedy, the memorial outside Hillcrest Primary has become a place to grieve.
We actually cared for one of the boys at the LGH when he passed away, so we just wanted to lay our respects for that.
Our community, without exception, will collectively continue to hope and to pray that the 2 children who remain in hospital in critical condition will be able to recover.
Survivor Bo Medcraft is recovering at home.
Thanks for the message, mate. I'll see you in February next year.
He thanked country musician Casey Barnes for sending his condolences. With so many traumatised children to speak with, Tasmanian police officers have accepted help from their New South Wales counterparts.
We want to make sure we got the best services to interview all those children who are affected.
Jalila Jane Marie Jones was remembered by her church community ahead of her funeral on Wednesday.
Many of the churches will have opened their doors to people who just need to come and to get support.
Local police officer Loretta Lincoln put a call out on social media seeking donations for the families and teachers.
Anything that we thought might ease any stress that they're going through at the moment, and just try to flood them with our love and support.
A devastating time as the community now prepares for 6 funerals. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
A freak storm has ripped through Sydney, leaving at least 1 person dead and damage across multiple suburbs. Roofs have been ripped off homes, with emergency services responding to dozens of calls for help.
You'd almost think this was a cyclone.
Get away from the window.
As winds howled and rain fell sideways.
I'm glad the car's in the garage today. Oh my God, Nick!
Taking Northern Beaches residents by surprise late this afternoon. And DY onlookers huddled inside on the main strip. As the system spared nothing in its path. The destruction the storm left was just as chaotic.
So someone's roof is in my driveway. All the wires have been busted down. This guy's car got javelined.
We were just having a family barbecue down the front. All of a sudden, all hell broke loose. Cars
destroyed.
It was just so much rain and wind, you couldn't even see the road. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at this.
And I've never seen anything like this in the 23 years I've lived here.
From above, the damage was far worse than many expected. In Cromer, trees were toppled, while in DY, this apartment block's roof has been stripped bare, as corrugated iron is flung onto parked cars and onto streets. Power lines also stood no chance. One person killed after they were crushed by a fallen tree. 2 others tonight fighting for life at the Royal North Shore Hospital.
One lady is deceased and 2 other ladies have been conveyed to hospital who have serious injuries.
We believe it was struck by lightning and that the trees come down from the lightning strike in the middle of what was this chaotic weather.
And the threat is far from over.
We are expecting the line of storms to push through Sydney around that 7 to 8 o'clock mark tonight.
Tom Saker, 7 News.
Wild weather has also lashed Melbourne, hitting the city with wind gusts of up to 65 kilometres an hour. At St Kilda's Junction Oval, cricketers battled against the strong winds as they tried to help ground staff cover the pitch. Elise Perry used her body weight to try to peg the covers down. South Melbourne Beach was deserted as lifeguards struggled against the blast. We'll have more of today's wild winds coming up in weather. Detectives are hunting an armed thief who used a syringe to hold up a donut shop in Melbourne's southeast. The violent attack has left young staff members traumatised.
Armed with a syringe, the crazed robber threatens to stab a Daniel's Donuts staff member before lunging through a barrier in a desperate attempt to find the cash register.
I've been doing this for quite a long time, and I am always appalled when this sort of behaviour happens, because these people they're pure victims. They are just doing their work.
The victim grabs her mobile phone and calls for help, but the man managed to steal money and a Mars bar donut before escaping.
It's just wrong, and this person has absolutely no moral fibre to behave like this.
Moments earlier, he's seen scoping the shopping centre in Carnegie. Police investigating if the thief was looking for a soft target.
He actually spent a little bit of time in the area selecting where he was going to do his robbery, and that concerns us as well.
The victims are too traumatised to speak on camera. One is just 16 years old, and this is her first job.
It's obviously a despicable act that this person has done, because this will affect the victims for quite some time to come.
Anyone who recognises the man is urged to call police. Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
2 children are among 4 people killed when a light plane ditched in the sea near Brisbane. The aircraft had just taken off on a joy flight before it crashed and landed upside down in shallow water.
A Christmas tragedy on what was supposed to be a joy flight.
4 people on board, 2 adults and 2 children. The family are deeply traumatised, as you'd expect.
The Rockwell International 4-seater took off from Redcliffe Aerodrome around 9 this morning and quickly got into trouble.
The aircraft was seen to disappear behind mangroves.
A short time later, another aircraft spotted the plane upturned in shallow water. On board, the 69-year-old pilot and his 3 passengers, a man and 2 young children. The pilot's relatives had been waiting for him back at the hangar. They became increasingly worried the flight was overdue.
They began looking at social media posts.
Hours later, officials pulled 4 bodies from the wreckage. The Rockwell International went down near mangroves in Deception Bay. It took police divers hours to access the wreckage, made even more difficult by changing tide levels. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau is also investigating
as to determine what was the status of the plane and take off what sort of communications they may have had.
And will produce a preliminary report within the next 2 months.
This is obviously not the way that we wanted to be spending the week leading up to Christmas, but I do have a very experienced team.
A specialist barge is being sent out tomorrow to dredge the wreckage. From there, forensics will analyse and piece together the information gathered. In Brisbane, Jordan Bissell, 7 News.
COVID complications are not holding Victorian shoppers back from a pre-Christmas spending spree. We're about to splurge more than $5 billion between now and the big day.
Checking in before checking off items on Christmas shopping lists. The dash to the shops becoming increasingly busy on the final weekend before Christmas.
It's absolutely packed, like all the way from Myers, all the way through, right down to the very end, down from Burke Street. There are like people like everywhere just doing some last minute shopping.
Despite all the complications, despite the lockdowns, despite quarantine risks, all of those things, people are absolutely shopping, and it comes down to a pent up demand.
In the 10 days before Christmas, Victorians are set to spend $5.3 billion, 4% more than last year. And Australians will spend another $2 billion online, up 18% on 2020.
We're seeing a really high number of people use click and collect service this year through David Jones, and particularly at this Christmas time.
People are looking for that frictionless experience. They want to be able to go and pick up an item immediately, or close to immediately if they can, and they also enjoy not paying for postage as well.
Will splurge the most on food, close to $8 billion, before household goods, clothing, footwear and personal accessories. Department stores are expecting to bring in $1.3 billion. Then there's the other items on our list.
I wish for our Harry Potter toy, Lego and books.
And for those a little lower on the list,
You got to get, Christmas wrapping, you got to get your tags, you got to get your stuff for yourself as well, treat yourself for Christmas. But I'm probably going to come on Christmas Eve because it is going to be packed.
And if you don't want to wait until Christmas Eve, there is still some time to get to the shops, including this evening here at Chadstone. The doors won't close until 10 o'clock tonight. And while there isn't a 24-hour trading period this year, it will stay open until midnight every night until Christmas Eve. That Friday it will close at 6 p.m, and that time's the same as Westfield centres across the state. Blake.
Hope Wilson at Chadstone, thank you. Two members of the English media covering the Ashes in Adelaide have tested positive to COVID. It comes as the players face strict new rules for upcoming tests in Melbourne and Sydney. Fast bowler Mitchell Starc has revealed just how close he and Nathan Lyon came to joining Pat Cummins on the COVID banned list in Adelaide.
It was almost a bit of a piss take because Pat didn't reply to a message, so we thought we'd sit away from him and sit outside. So it's been a lucky one. I guess guys might be more aware, obviously, in the next two venues.
Players won't be able to dine indoors or gather in large crowds. Autographs and selfies with fans are off limits too, with players subjected to COVID tests if they decide to stay at home rather than the team hotel. And with more on the Ashes, Laura Spurway, the Aussies are going in for the kill.
They are, Blake, but they hit a bit of a hurdle this afternoon from a fired-up Stuart Broad. Marcus Harris gone cheaply once again, while Steve Smith was rattled by the English veteran, eventually departing in a mini collapse on day 4. All the highlights are coming up. And it was a wild night in the A-League as Victory and City traded blows in the Melbourne derby. Tiger son Charlie shows off his monster swing with the swagger to match. And a Melbourne youngster fell just short of an incredible record in the NBA. I'll be back with those details shortly.
See you soon, Laura. Thank you. Up next, a former Test cricket star's cocaine shock, plus the extreme lengths Melbourne bosses are going to in the battle to fill job vacancies. A call out to mentors to help young Victorians pass their driver's test. Music legend Rod Stewart guilty of serious assault charges. And later, the hidden costs of booking your summer holiday. A 7 News special investigation. Bombshell drug claims have emerged about former Test cricketer Stuart MacGill. A lawyer for one of the men charged with kidnapping MacGill has alleged in court the former Test cricketer helped organise cocaine deals at his Sydney restaurant. The ex-spin king was forced into a waiting car and driven to a rural Western Sydney property before being stripped naked and bashed during a terrifying ordeal in April. A desperate cafe owner is dishing up free rent on the Mornington Peninsula to bypass a chronic workforce shortage. Employers are being forced to get creative to lure staff as thousands of positions remain vacant.
It's prime real estate across from the beach and could be all yours if you're a hospitality worker in need of a job.
And we're offering people free rent for a year, so we've rented a house in Rosebud on the foreshore. It's an amazing spot.
Julian Moosey owns 20 cafes across Melbourne and has only half the staff he needs. He's had to introduce this one-of-a-kind incentive on top of an annual $85,000 wage.
It's desperate times, desperate measures. We're offering chefs and also skilled front-of-house staff an opportunity to get paid really well and also have the perks of free rent by the water.
Hospitality has thousands of vacancies due to the loss of overseas workers and people leaving the industry during lockdowns. According to Jobs Marketplace Seek, baristas top Melbourne's most wanted list. More than 2,500 wait staff and bartenders are needed, plus almost 2,000 chefs.
It's certainly a difficult period for recruitment in hospitality in Australia. We're still looking for 200 roles nationally across the TGI Fridays Australia brand.
The federal opposition says the skills shortage is not only a result of closed borders, it's also due to $3 billion worth of TAFE cuts over the last 8 years.
Today, we have 85,000 less trainees and apprentices than we did back in 2013. The economy's grown in that time, the labour force has grown in that time.
Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
Sir Rod Stewart and his son have pleaded guilty to assault over a New Year's Eve incident 2 years ago. The father and son were accused of shoving and hitting a security guard after they were denied access to a private event in Florida. The singer says he pleaded guilty to spare the court such a high-profile case. If you consider yourself a safe and experienced driver, this story could be for you. Vic Roads is in desperate need of driving mentors to clear a backlog of L-platers preparing to get their licences.
Around 25,000 Victorians are without access to a car or supervision to get their licence. If that's the case, the L2P driving program is here to help.
The L2P program is a mentoring program for people who need to get driving practice.
It's been running since 2008, matching learners with mentors, and has helped 7,000 people move onto their P plates, clocking up close to 630,000 hours behind the wheel.
Look all around as well, don't.
But the program had to hit the brakes during the pandemic.
There is a little bit of a backlog, so that is part of the issue, is trying to get a few more people through the program.
There are 1,500 mentors, but more are needed.
We cover the costs of the vehicle, we supply the vehicle, and it is a great experience.
An experience Vince Baskerville has had for 7 years as a mentor.
Tragically lost my own daughter many years ago now in a car smash when she was nearly 19 years old. So I've had to live with that, and I don't want any other parents to go through the same sort of experience.
Young Victorians are some of our most at-risk and vulnerable people on our roads.
It's really important that we give everybody who needs that driving practice and needs a mentor the opportunity.
Volunteer mentors need to be over the age of 21 with a full licence and have a good driving history.
Driving really is a privilege, but it's a privilege that everybody should have the opportunity to be part of.
Hope Wilson, 7 News.
Estelle Greeping's here for more on today's wild weather. Estelle, what a difference a day makes.
Well, Blake, yesterday we crept into the mid-30s, but today felt like a return to winter. This was Geelong as the cold front rolled in today. Wind gusts got to 80 kilometres there. It also looked dark and gloomy in Pakenham, the top there just 20 degrees compared to 29 yesterday. And there were also rain clouds over the basin. They received more than 8 millimetres today. But in the city we reached a top of 23. And it's much clearer out there now. Thanks to those milder temperatures, it'll be easier to sleep tonight with temperatures in the low teens overnight. And I'll have all the details after sport. Blake?
See you soon, Estelle. Thank you. Holiday-hungry Victorians face a price hike. Up next, the hidden costs and how best to budget for your summer getaway. Plus, severe weather affects Australia's seafood supply. Trouble brewing for embattled British PM Boris Johnson. And the 6-year-old proving anyone can break into Melbourne's property market. There's a new tactic in the fight to reduce public drunkenness in Victoria, with the Andrews government spending $26 million to set up 4 trial sites. The health-based model is designed to promote culturally safe pathways and outreach services in partnership with Victoria Police. The initiative also hopes to help Aboriginal communities across the state, with trial site locations in Greater Shepparton, Greater Dandenong, Castlemaine and the City of Yarra. Victorians preparing for a much-needed interstate or overseas holiday this summer are in for a big shock. Travellers are being hit with a raft of new travel costs, which could blow the family budget.
Victorians are desperate for a holiday, but this year it will come at a cost.
We're happy to be travelling and going overseas, so it's worth it.
Travellers are being hit hard when it comes to car hire. Prices have surged 75% compared to last year. A hire car now costing an average $157 a day over Christmas and New Year, compared to $92 at the end of January.
Because there's been supply chain issues, because there aren't enough computer chips for new cars, there just aren't enough hire cars around, and as a result we've seen this massive surge in prices.
Travel insurance has never been more important and is mandatory in countries like Fiji and Singapore. In Thailand, tourists need a minimum of $68,000 medical cover.
You do need to look at the policies carefully because they won't cover everything. If there's an unexpected border shutdown, there's no travel insurance policy that will cover you.
Some families are shelling out thousands to prove they're COVID-free and safe to travel.
When you're doing quite a few, it does add up.
Some labs charge up to $350 per test, but not at the airport.
Our RT-PCR tests, for example, are $79. We have some passengers paying $150 or more at the moment.
But after 2 years of border closures, travellers aren't deterred by the shifting rules or the Omicron variant. They simply want to reunite with their loved ones at Christmas. And after the year that was, it's worth every cent. Jackie Quist, 7 News.
The British minister in charge of Brexit has sensationally resigned, delivering a fresh blow to embattled PM Boris Johnson. Lord Frost is said to be unhappy with the direction of the Johnson government, but it appears the latest round of COVID restrictions was the final straw. It follows an internal revolt over vaccine passport rules and the PM's own Christmas party scandal. One Conservative MP says Boris Johnson is running out of time and friends to deliver his promises. Spanish locals are holding out hope a volcano emergency will be declared over before Christmas. But 3 months of havoc on the island of La Palma will have a long-lasting effect.
Steam and gases are still streaming from the La Palma volcano, but the molten lava has finally stopped after 12 weeks. For a fifth day, the volcano that's caused so much destruction is silent. A relief for locals. The rivers of red lava that have dominated the island for 3 months replaced with a sea of black. 6,000 people forced from their homes permanently, more than 1,000 buildings destroyed. So many left untouched, but now surrounded by a foreign landscape. Whole towns left with permanent scars. People left hoping this is the end of the destruction. The volcano hangs like a shadow over the community as they prepare for Christmas. Children describing the volcano as angry. We live under the illusion that the volcano is giving us a rest, this woman says. If the volcano stays quiet until Christmas Day, authorities will declare the crisis over, and many a prayer will have been answered. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
There's a new warning for seafood lovers, with severe weather hurting some of this year's supply. New federal protocols are being introduced to protect our waterways, which have been described as the silent victim of recent summer bushfires.
He's spent 30 years on the water, but the last few have been some of the toughest for fisherman Richie Bagnato. His industry still cleaning up and counting the cost after the fires and floods.
There was a lot of debris, and that debris out at sea lasts for months.
Destroying our marine habitats, killing fish and other sea life.
Even though they were an absolute tragedy, we did learn a lot. We learnt about the effect of ash in the water. We learnt about the effect of rising pH in the water that supports oysters.
The government has used that to launch the Fish Habitat Protection Protocol, a series of recommendations designed to protect underwater ecosystems during and after extreme weather events like bushfires.
You might have the first responders who come onto the fire ground after a fire, having that understanding of what you do with the debris so that it doesn't end up in the estuary.
As fishmongers warn, while some of the favourites are more expensive this year, it's a small price to pay to ensure the industry's future.
We're seeing prices are a little bit higher than usual. We've had a hard trot this year, last year, so if you can support your local business, do so. It's a good time to get in. You know, it'll be as fresh as the 23rd and the 24th in the morning.
Amber Laidler, 7 News.
Melbourne's booming property market has left many parents worried their children will never afford their own home. But a 6-year-old and her siblings have pulled their pocket money, proving anyone can buy in.
On Melbourne's fast-growing urban fringe, Ruby McClellan, her brother Gus and sister Lucy have just purchased their very own patch of dirt, buying into the Australian dream.
My name is Ruby and I'm 6 years old and I'm about to buy my first house.
Dad Cam is a property investment guru and has helped his kids buy into the booming market.
Financially, they've each contributed $2,000 and they've saved that up.
The children do household chores, saving their coins and making more money packing their father's revamped best-selling book.
It's written for my kids to use when they're old enough. So I've outlined all the steps it takes to build a property portfolio.
The house and land in Clyde costs $671,000 and Cam predicts it will double in value in 10 years.
The driveway is right there, and then you're going to walk in and you'll have a bedroom and then the living room, and then right behind that there's the kitchen and the dining room.
The escalating cost of housing and deposit sizes are the biggest barriers to home ownership. The Commonwealth Bank finding that a quarter of Australians have considered clubbing together with parents, friends or siblings to buy in.
And the price on that block's already gone up $70,000. So they've done well so far.
The future young landlords plan to sell in 2032 and split the profits. Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Take care, not risks. That's the important new message for men around water this summer. Details are next on 7 News. Plus, the Melbourne L-plater caught 100 kilometres an hour over the limit. And the incredible discovery that shows how the Sydney Harbour Bridge could have looked. 350 jobs in the state's mental health industry are up for grabs as the Andrews government promises to help fix a broken system. $41 million will fund the new roles, including more psychiatrists and nurses.
I had to fight against more experienced candidates to get my foot in the door. These allied health positions announced today are going to allow new graduates a foot in the door to get the experience they need.
The state budget has allocated almost $4 billion to reform mental health services. A learner driver has been caught almost 100 kilometres over the speed limit in Springvale. The 17-year-old was slapped with a $1,000 fine and had his brother's car impounded. The crackdown is part of Operation Roadwise as police target high-risk areas over the festive period. Officers were out in force last night, breath testing motorists on the Monash Freeway. Men are the focus of a new campaign aimed at putting a stop to drownings at Melbourne beaches. The message, take care, not risks, after one of our deadliest seasons in the water.
4 unsinkable guys, the faces of the latest campaign to keep Victorians safe around the water this summer.
He doesn't need to swim between the flags. Rip? What rip? Can he have a few drinks? Of course he can.
This is a light-hearted campaign about a really serious issue.
We did last year experience our worst drowning toll in 20 years. We had 61 people who lost their lives to drowning.
Authorities are concerned more people are at risk this summer.
We're all coming out of lockdown. We're tired, we're fatigued.
4 out of 5 drownings are men, and more than a third involve alcohol.
Often it's men getting into trouble when they don't think that they are going to be in that situation.
But Paul Konechny was.
There were no lifeguards, no flags on the day, a lot of surfboards in the water. We just thought, we'll be fine.
He wasn't fine. After board riding, he tried paddling back to shore, but didn't move.
My son looked at me and said, I can't leave you out here. He said, grab my leg, and he paddled back into shore. I don't remember anything much after grabbing his leg.
Incredibly, they survived.
If I had been on my own, I would have drowned for sure. I should have known better.
And now he wants others to know better.
You may think you're unsinkable, but in fact, if you do not do the right thing, you might end up being a statistic.
Ashley Kanowski, 7 News.
It's been revealed Sydney's Harbour Bridge could have looked very different to how it does today. Animators have spent hundreds of hours bringing to life a version of the iconic attraction that might have been.
Bridging the gap. Not in steel, but imagination. How Sydney might have looked, like with triple the coat hangers.
We were actually quite surprised at the scale and the volume and the shapes and the diversity of designs.
The worsening problem of crossing the harbour led officials to take a punt on international design competitions. From those long-gone dreams and drawings of the runners-up, Sydney animators Arterra Interactive have now spanned the past to a different present.
A lot of these stories don't exist So we wanted to bring these to life through animation.
This three-armed bridge to link Balls Head, Millers Point and Balmain was proposed by Parramatta engineer Francis Stowe. The 152-metre tower doubled as a war memorial, with Goat Island renamed Anzac Isle.
The official opening of the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
The arch rival has been standing proud since 1932, the icon taking shape over 8 years. The animations taking 800 hours. And after poring through the intricate detail, the animators came to the same conclusion as the judges.
I actually believe the bridge we have today is the best possible design out of all of the options that were presented back in the day.
And it's not the only Sydney icon with a strange past. Patrick Burns, 7 News.
Laura Spurway returns with sport. And Laura, the Aussies are building a massive lead in Adelaide.
They are, Blake. They're heaping more pain on England heading into the evening. Up next, Joss Butler's rollercoaster series continues with a mixed day behind the stumps as Marnus Labuschagne and Travis Head go searching for quick runs. The local derby returns to the glory days as victory roar back to life. Believe the hype as Charlie Woods upstages his famous dad Tiger. And the Victorian who can't be stopped ahead of the Winter Olympics. Welcome back. England faces a monumental task to avoid another humiliating defeat in the second Ashes test in Adelaide. With Australia's lead now well in excess of 400 on day 4, a declaration is imminent before the Aussie pace attack prepares to unleash under lights.
Adelaide after dark, where things can get really balmy and Mitchell Starc does his best work. But it's pure luck that Starc and Nathan Lyon were still there to rip through England.
Oh, got him right through Woakes' defences.
And not on the plane home with Pat Cummins, because the Aussie skipper had brushed them at dinner on match eve.
It was almost a bit of a piss take because Pat didn't reply to a message, so we thought we'd sit away from him and sit outside. So it's been a lucky one.
England lost 8 for 86, copped some blows and trailed Australia by 237. Steve Smith didn't enforce the follow-on. The Marcus Harris-David Warner relationship hit a hurdle.
Misunderstanding, run out. Warner is out, run out.
Davies called yes. Yeah, we can hear Warner say yes.
Warner would not have slept well. Smith was up all night with his new bat. He might have regretted the tactics and lack of sleep.
Got him! Well bowled.
The night watchman Nisa gone and Harris for 23.
Is it taken? It is.
Butler's second screamer of the test. Then, first ball to Smith.
Edge, Aussie, oh, he's dropped it.
The third one he spilt. Second ball to Smith.
Oh, that's a big shout.
Looked plumb, but saved by the quirks of the umpire's call rule. Not pushing to declare, but fighting to survive, Smith gave Butler another chance on 6.
And Steve Smith has walked.
3 for 14 in a painstaking first hour. Nothing to sneeze at, especially with sore ribs. But every beaten bat and run is another nail for England.
It's a beautiful shot, but it's rubbish bowling.
371 lead by the second session. Woakes nearly lost his head. After a busy 50 that settled any doubt, Australia did lose theirs.
In the air, it will. It's been taken.
Still, almost since the test began, it's only felt like delaying the inevitable.
Oh, has he tweaked something there? He has.
Your senior fast bowler injures himself trying to slog for quick runs.
Matt Carmichael, 7 News.
Melbourne Victory's coach has declared the club is back to its glory days after a classic derby against Melbourne City. Both sides had to share the points in the 4-goal thriller.
A heaving crowd at Amy Park with loyalties divided. It was a derby that lived up to the hype.
Is this the moment for victory? It is! They've equalised against! What a match of football!
An equaliser in the 81st minute.
You know, it was a real derby. We wanted to bring that back.
A club humiliated last season. In just 5 games, Tony Popovich has turned the Victory's fortunes around.
We brought the passion back on the field, and obviously the fans as well felt that, Melbourne Victory was back today.
City threw down the challenge with a purple patch after the break as Socceroos stars Jamie McLaren and Andrew Naboot combined to perfection, each netting a goal.
It's crossed back post, Naboot! 2 goals in 2 minutes! And City are in front in the derby.
Both sides had their chances late in a tense finish that ended 2-2.
That's what a derby's all about. Emotions run high. You know, we played entertaining football, so did they. They've gone a new level from last season.
COVID continues to cause chaos in the Premier League. Another 6 games postponed. Leeds only had 9 senior players available, with a 15-year-old on the bench in a 4-1 loss to Arsenal.
It's unravelling very quickly for Leeds United.
The Gunners up to 4th on the table. Tim Hipsley, 7 News.
Chris Goulding has starred in Melbourne United's win over the New Zealand Breakers, scoring 21 points to keep the Breakers winless from 5 games, the worst start in the club's history.
And Goulding from deep comes up with the goods. That is deep.
Jack White's return to the court was celebrated by his Melbourne teammates after 8 months out with a ruptured Achilles. Melbourne teenager Josh Giddey fell 2 points short of becoming the youngest player in NBA history to record a triple-double. He had 8 points, 10 assists and a whopping 18 rebounds in a crazy buzzer-beating win over the Clippers. COVID rules meant the Brooklyn Nets had just 3 players on their bench for their clash with Orlando, leaving Aussie Paddy Mills to do the heavy lifting in the 7-point loss. Tiger Woods is officially back, but it's his 12-year-old son Charlie who's captivating the sporting world. Playing together at the Father-Son PNC Championship in Florida, the pair's mannerisms are completely in sync. Charlie's showing that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree when it comes to talent too.
No. Gives it the walk-in.
How many times have we seen that putter held up by Dad?
Yep.
Charlie also shares Dad's supreme self-confidence, judging by this effort while practising putting. He sank 1, then flashed world number 6 Justin Thomas the show me the money gesture. Team Woods fired a 10 under 62 in the first round to sit 3 shots back. Wow, one to watch. Barwon Heads local Jakara Anthony can't stop collecting World Cup medals leading up to the Winter Olympics. The 23-year-old won her 2nd gold of the weekend in France with victory in the double moguls. Anthony's the first Aussie to win double gold since Britt Cox 4 years ago.
I was just really glad to get some tough duels. There's so many strong women out there, so it's really cool.
In Italy, Bel Brockhoff claimed back-to-back podiums with bronze in the Snowboard Cross World Cup. There is a lot of talent out there. 47 days to the Winter Olympics. Plenty to see.
Looking forward to it. Also looking forward to seeing young Minnie Woods grow up.
I know.
It's an entertaining one.
It's a scary thought.
It's good. Thanks, Laura. Estelle's next with the forecast. Estelle, the threat of more storm activity is lingering.
Well, Blake, the worst of it has passed us, but some areas could still have more to come. I'll have the details next.
Know the headlines as they break. Know the stories as they happen. With 7news.com.au, know the news now.
Hello again. We've gone from summer to winter in 24 hours with wild winds lashing Melbourne, cooling everything right down. The city reached a top of 23 today and was hit by wind gusts of 65 kilometres per hour. But it was even stormier elsewhere. As a cold front moved through, gusts at Essendon were 100 kilometres per hour. It got to 94 kilometres an hour at Melbourne Airport and 91 at Avalon. Further out, the stronger gusts were at Mount Buller, Mount Hotham and Falls Creek, with the top being 135 kilometres per hour. And tonight, a warning is in place for damaging winds about the state's ranges. We also saw a lot of thunderstorm activity today with lightning in suburbs like Craigieburn and also in our northeast. This was at Benalla, but there were also sightings at Yarrawonga, Nagambie and Merrijig. On the satellite, and that cold front will clear eastern Victoria by this evening as a high-pressure ridge develops to the west. Around the nation, Sydney's looking partly cloudy but warm. Brisbane gets into the 30s and it's dry and sunny. Cloud will clear in Adelaide, reaching the mid-20s, while there's lots of sunshine for Perth. To Victoria, and that cold front is passing us. We're looking sunny once more. Mid and warm with moderate winds, but nowhere near as hot as yesterday. In the suburbs, there'll also be plenty of sunshine. It should be dry and will stay that way for the rest of the week. 26 for Frankston, 24 for Torquay. In the city, from a low of 15, we'll reach 27. To the 7-day outlook, and we'll reach 26 on Tuesday. It'll be warm and mostly sunny. But come Wednesday, those cloudy conditions return, a top of 20, and we could get a shower. On Thursday, we could get a mix of sun and cloud, a top of 22. But the weather turns it on for Christmas, 26 on Christmas Eve and 24 on Christmas Day. Partly cloudy for Boxing Day, a top of 22. But tomorrow, from a low of 12, we'll reach a sunny top of 27. Now, there's no rain in sight, and it will also be our warmest day of the week as we continue to count down to Christmas. Blake?
A very nice forecast indeed. Estelle, thank you. And that is 7 News. Thanks for making us part of your Sunday. Stay with us now as we take you back to the Adelaide Oval for the second Ashes test. From the news team, good night.